Maker's wood finishing series has returned. Let's dive into the Heart release. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So that's right, today we're diving into Maker's Mark's newest bottle, the Heart release. So we're about a year out from the release of their BEP bottle, the barrel entry proof bottle, that supposedly marked the end of the wood finishing series. At least at the time it seemed to. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's kind of a marketing spin after the fact, but Makers has now labeled that the end of chapter 1, and this bottle, the Heart release, is meant to open chapter 2. In fact, right on the side of the bottle it says volume 1 of 5. So they're planning to do at least 5 releases in the new chapter. I'm excited about that. I really do enjoy the wood finishing series. Loved how chapter 1, the theme there really was to highlight aspects of their whiskey making process. So barrel entry proof, for instance, highlighted their lower 110 barrel entry proof. BRT 01 and 02 were about where the barrels are ricked in the rick house. And then FAE 01 and FAE 02 were all about preserving the fatty acid esters that they love to keep in their whiskey and why they do that. So it was just cool to see them highlight the whiskey making process. This new bottle and this whole new chapter seem to take a different approach. So right here on the side of the bottle, it says, "For this second chapter of our limited release wood finishing series, we pursue unique taste visions inspired by the teams who craft our handmade bourbon in Loretto, Kentucky, the makers of our makers, if you will. In this 2024 release, known as the Heart release, we have crafted a one-of-a-kind expression that celebrates our team that distills our whiskey. This team is the center, the heart, if you will, of our whiskey making process. This stage in the process serves to guide all other stages, ensuring our taste vision is realized. Fruit forward with caramel, maple, and chocolate notes, this expression features a rich, creamy mouthfeel that is a pure delight. We hope you enjoy this one as much as we enjoyed making it." So we'll have to see about those tasting notes, but seems like this new chapter is focusing on the people behind their whiskey. Definitely a little less concrete maybe than the first chapter, so we'll see how it unfolds, but I'm excited to dive in. In terms of the stats on this particular bottle, proof-wise, it's 112 proof. It's not age stated, but Makers usually does everything pretty much at 6 to 7 years old and just kind of tastes to what they prefer. And then price here is $70, somewhere around there, MSRP, which I think is relatively fair for a limited special release. And then the mash bill is the standard Maker's mash bill, which isn't disclosed what it is, but it does have red winter wheat in it, and everything they do is a wheated bourbon. So I know that's a lot of information, a lot of prelude to this whiskey itself. Let's dive in and see how good it is. So on the nose. Okay, so I do get that maple for sure. Cherry and chocolate as well. Yeah, nice fruitiness. Brown sugar. Spicy oak too. But a pretty inviting nose. I'm actually very intrigued, and it's doing its job to draw me in. All right, let's go in on the palate. Cheers. Okay. It's spicy up front, much more spice forward than I was anticipating. Big burst of this baking cinnamon spice experience. Then it faded into this sweeter profile. Red berry fruits, maybe a raspberry or cherry, kind of a blackberry experience too. And then some of that vanilla and oak, and then a lot of the maple. I think the maple is coming through the most prominently for me on this whiskey. Just on the nose, it really was there, and then that's what it fades to. The finish feels very maple forward to me. All right, now that we've got it on the palate, let's go in for a second sip, see if we can pick out some more flavors. Cheers. Okay, there it was. The chocolate did come through finally on that sip. A little bit more chocolate and caramel, just like they specify right here on the bottle. So I can tend to agree with those tasting notes. But again, I'm going to say the spice, surprisingly there. I mean, it's 112 proof, so it's not low proof, that's for sure. But that winter baking spice experience is definitely prominent. And then I do think the most interesting combo is this like blackberry, red cherry, maple sweetness that it fades to. And the finish sticks around for a while because of the spiciness. All right, let's go in for a third sip and we'll really focus on that finish and evaluate the heart release as an overall whiskey. Cheers. Okay. Basically the same experience there. The spice, I think, is what gives the finish most of its staying power. Then it goes to that maple and the blackberry experience. Feels a little thin in that way. The maple comes in at a nice kind of burst on the back end of the palate, and then it kind of just, the finish I feel like fades a little bit, and mostly the spice is there. I wish a little bit more of the sweet flavors were clinging to the finish a little bit longer. Overall, I think this is pretty good whiskey. I think it's actually very good whiskey. I think that for some reason I'm struggling with, I feel like sometimes the spice is overwhelming some of the other flavors. I wish I had a little bit more of that chocolate and caramel. I'm getting more of the maple, berry, and spice experience. Not necessarily a bad thing, could just be my palate today as well. But in particular, I wish the finish had a little more of that sweetness that would stick around longer and the spice wouldn't overwhelm things as much. Feels just a touch out of balance, and there's a little bit of an astringency along with the spice that I wish was toned down a little bit more. But I haven't had a bourbon that has had this much maple, and then the red raspberry, red cherry, blackberry notes are really cool and really inviting. The nose is great. The palate just could be a little bit more balanced for me, but the flavors are definitely there. If you think that you would like any of the flavors I've described today, this is definitely a bourbon for you. If you're looking for something maple forward, I feel like this has maple, maple, maple. That's what carries from, you know, the mid palate into the back end of the palate and does stay in the finish for a little bit of time. So I think the maple is probably primary here for me. Wish I was getting a little more of the chocolate and caramel. But it's a good whiskey. It's quite good. For the $70, I feel like it's solid. I'm really interested to see where the rest of the wood finishing series goes. I don't feel like this is off on a bad foot, but I feel like if I compare in my mind to the other wood finishing series products that I have, it might be middle of the pack. I have to do a little bit of comparing to see. But the maple and berry experience is quite prominent here. Okay, so I think that's gonna wrap it up, everybody. Would love to know in the comments below if you've been able to taste the heart release and what you've thought of it so far. Are you enjoying this whiskey? Do you think it's worth the price? Is it worth hunting down as well? While you're at it, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, would love to have you aboard for the rest of 2024 and beyond. And then please consider hitting like on this button. That's what gets it out to the most people. That's gonna wrap it up, everybody. Until I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.